All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's break down the main event for tomorrow's fight night in Baku, Azerbaijan. Rafael Fiziev versus Manuel Torres. So let's look at the tail of the tape first. So we got Rafael Fiziev is 13 and 5, taking on his opponent is 17 and 3. Looks a little lopsided there in the records. 5'8", 2-inch height disadvantage for Fiziev. And he's 2 years older, another disadvantage. 2 inches reach, another disadvantage. Both of them are same stance. Very much striker versus striker. This is not really a grappler heavy as far as submission averages. You can tell both of them are under one. That says enough right there. Let's go to what makes this fight so intriguing. So when we look at these are still the media rankings. This was what the rankings were when this fight night main event was announced. Fiziev is ranked number 11, and Manuel Torres gets to be back into the top 15 after Michael Chandler's horrible performance at the White House. He got removed from the rankings, and Manuel was introduced back in. But when the new meta rankings came out, check this out. Yeah, there is no Rafael Fiziev, and Manuel Torres gets updated to number 13 with his, as we mentioned before, his better record, and we'll break both of theirs down as far as in the UFC specifically. But I don't know what they're gonna do tomorrow. I assume they'll still do number 11 versus, I guess you can still do 13 for Torres, even though he's 15 in the media ranking still, but it's whatever ranking the UFC is going to use to promote their fire. So with that being said, I'm going to promote the man that's going to be fighting in his home country for the second year in a row, Rafael Fiziev, since he is still, as that introduction says right there, the number 11 ranked lightweight in the world. So Rafael Fiziev trains at Tiger Muay Thai, and that's his home. He has been training in that gym since he broke into the UFC. So here's his record. He has 7 wins and 5 losses. And like we said, he is not a submission guy. He is stand up, knockout, and it will be a battle of wills if you're able to survive with him. And this is his record. So he came into the UFC in 2019, and so far he has 12 UFC fights in 6.5 or 7.5 years, give or take. 7 years, we'll say that. And this is what he did before he came to UFC. He was a Road FC fighter and then also turned into the Titan FC promotion, which is very known internationally. Yeah, there's him at Road FC, looking very young. Like that is early 20s, Rafael Fiziev. Him fighting Sung Young Kim and him just destroying him in the first round, knees and punches. Yeah, there's the knee. There's the left hook, right uppercut, sent him folding like a lawn chair down. Then there's his fight in Titan FC 51. Took on Nurzan Tutkayev, defeated him with a body kick in the second round, and that's what literally this body kick right there, right to the rib of the right side of his opponent, this made him fold and sit in the corner, and that was all she wrote. There's his manager, the same one that we've seen with synonymous top ranked and champion UFC fighters today. And that's what got him to sign the contract to get his UFC debut against Magomed Mustafayev in April of 2019, mind you. And he's 26 years old, 6-0, fighting in the UFC in his debut. And I believe this is a fight night in Russia against this man who is 13 and 2. He has 15 fights compared to his opponent's 6, and he's from Dagestan, Russia. And yes, he has Khabib Nurmagomedov in his corner. And he wins this fight handily, mind you. He hit, even though he has his guard up, Fiziev with this spinning wheel kick to the temple that made him just fall backwards, look up at his opponent and goes, that is all she wrote. And there is Mustafayev walking away with the referee saving Fiziev's life in his UFC debut. But that was his debut. Let's look at his last 5 fights. It is 1 win and 4 losses. That is not good. But we'll look more specifically at those 5 fights and why that might make a difference for this one coming up this weekend. So his last 5 fights starts with his fight against the current undisputed lightweight champion of the world, Justin Gaethje. And this was the fight after he suffered his last championship loss to Charles Oliveira, where he got choked out in the first round. And Justin Gaethje tears Fiziev's face up and wins this fight by majority decision in the co-main event of UFC 286. After this fight, this is Javier Fiziev's second main event in his career. He already won his first one against former lightweight champion Rafael dos Anjos. And now this is his second main event against the number seven ranked lightweight in the world, Mateusz Gamrot. Unfortunately, leg injury suffered by Fiziev made him unable to continue, so he would lose this bout by first round TKO, giving Mateusz Gamrot the victory and another high profile opponent under his belt. So then after this fight, we gave an announcement that we're going to get Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker, co-main event at UFC 313 in Las Vegas. And all of a sudden, Dan Hooker pulls out because he has a hand injury. And taking his spot is a man who was attempting to redeem his second last defeat to Justin Gaethje. And it's Rafael Fiziev taking this fight on about less than a month's notice, I want to say. And I think it was like 2 weeks now that I think about it. And just like the last fight, he went the distance, and there's Fiziev's face and Justin Gaethje with his hand raised with the monster can. This would be the fight that he has fought Rafael Fiziev both times. He is taking finish losses to Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway. This was his fight back after getting knocked out in the UFC 300, where he won $300,000 for getting knocked out in the bonus. And this is exactly just like he lost his fight with Oliveira. He beats Fiziev 3-round decision and back momentum. And this fight would actually be the momentum swing that allowed him to become the two-time lightweight interim champion after winning it back in 2020, on top of being the BMF former champion. And now, after 2 weekends ago, he is the undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world. And now that we after that fight that he had with Justin Gaethje, we head to Baku, Azerbaijan last year in 2025 on June 21st. This was the card, and on the co-main event, we have Rafael Fiziev versus Ignacio Bahamondes. And in this fight, he was the favorite, considering Fiziev had lost three of his last bouts to Gaethje, and Gamrot. So this fight, thankfully, in his own home country backyard, Fiziev wins this fight by 3-round unanimous decision. And now we get to his last performance earlier this year at UFC 325. Mauricio Rufy versus number 9 ranked Rafael Fiziev. Rufy just sent him down to the canvas, and that was all she wrote. Fiziev now has lost 4 of his last 5 fights to all top 10 ranked lightweights in the world. But now we return a year later to the same arena where he has his only victory in his last 5 fights, back to Baku, Azerbaijan, where this time he will be the main event taking on Manuel Torres. Now let's take a look at his opponent, the man that is arguably the favorite going into this bout. Torres is 17-3, and he trains out of forget what this team is called. That's the translation of it in Spanish. But yeah, he trains in Mexico, where he has all these high-profile athletes and professional wrestlers training with him, and it's a good camaraderie. It's good nationality pride, and I feel like it's the momentum that's carried him on into the UFC today. So this is his career so far. He is 5-1 in the promotion, and he has 9 wins by knockout, 7 by submission. This dude actually is a well-rounded mixed martial artist. But let's look at his career before he came in the UFC. So he did a lot of work for some of the regional promotions in Mexico before he got his opportunity at UWC, where he fought Carlos Canada, and defeated him with a 25-second guillotine choke, ladies and gentlemen. So that fight right there gave him the momentum to get into Dana White's Contender Series, where he took on Colton England. And he wins this fight handily. Just destroy him first round TKO, ground and pound, got him into the UFC, where he would be taking on, in his UFC debut, Frank Camacho, who has 31 professional fights to Manuel's 14. That is over twice the experience against somebody making his UFC debut. No problem whatsoever. Manuel Torres passes this test with all flying colors. Hit him with this right hook on the eye, and it just sent him not on his back, but literally almost face first to the canvas, and that is all she wrote. Next fight after that, he would take on Nicholas Mota, And in this fight, people are starting to give him more appreciation now that he's got, back-to-back knockouts under his belt. And he does this so easily, ladies and gentlemen. Look at Nicholas Moda just behind him on the stool, not even able to get to the center of the octagon to where Herb Dean will be standing next to him. He is unable to get to the official decision ruling after this elbow to the nose that sent him just unconscious in the corner of the cage. And then he hits him with this unnecessary hammer fist because Herb Dean wasn't fast enough. Yeah, unless it's a Justin Gaethje head kick, he's never fast enough. So then we move on from that fight to a man who attempted to get into the top 15 of the lightweight division earlier this year, who took on Hanato Moicano, Chris Duncan. Great fight. This is an evenly matched fight between two contender series alums, 28-30, 5'10, reached 2 inches, same that will be this weekend against Fiziev. And another test pass by the El Loco, Manuel Torres, and he just did this fight. Back to what we were saying earlier, he's not just a knockout artist, even though he wins all his fights by knockout, but this was round one, uh, just over 100 seconds, a minute and 45 into the first round, gets the rear naked choke and defeats a very high profile lightweight contender today. And now we move on to UFC Noche, UFC 306 at the Sphere, and he takes on a similar opponent that we already know took on Rafael Fiziev, Ignacio Bahamondes. But what would happen in this fight, ladies and gentlemen? Bahamondes won, and he showed out by hitting uh, Torres with this nice right cross straight to the chin and just folded him, made him crumble, made him cover up, not intelligently. That's not defending yourself, ladies and gentlemen. And after that fight, Manuel Torres, to get back on the winning track after taking his first UFC loss, took on the perennial UFC lightweight veteran, Drew freaking Dober, but was on the decline coming into this fight, won't lie, after his intense war he had with Gene Silva in UFC Fight Night Denver. And this is the fight he has right afterwards. He would lose this fight, and it would get Manuel Torres back on track because he hit him with this right punch, just like he hit um, Frank Camacho with, and it just sent him flying down. He couldn't recover, but he tried to. Dober, in his own case, went for a single leg, but it wasn't until the defense of Michael Beltran stops the fight. After that, this was the last fight that is now under Manuel Torres' UFC career. Number 13 lightweight ranked Grant Dawson, who is back on the winning track after beating Mateusz Rebecki earlier this year. But last year at UFC 323, on the last pay-per-view of the ESPN era before we switched to Paramount, Manuel Torres hit Grant Dawson with this left uppercut right as he was trying to dodge or duck under it, and he flattened him onto his back, staring up at the lights. That's what led us to this weekend, where we'll have Rafael Fiziev versus Manuel Torres. So let's see this. Manuel Torres is 5-1, right? You would think with a record like that, I'm going with the man who has way more momentum than a person who has lost 4 of his last 5, when this man has won 4 of his last 5. But, ladies and gentlemen, I think if you look more closely at the losses that Fiziev suffered, I don't think Manuel Torres is up there in this caliber of competition quite yet. I mean, you talk about earlier what you saw with his fight with Ignacio Bahamondes. Bahamondes beat him. He had a fight last year in the same place that Fiziev will be fighting tomorrow in Azerbaijan, and he fought him and he lost in a 3-round unanimous decision. So that leads us to tomorrow's main event. Ladies and gentlemen, I know what the records are suggesting, but I'm going with the opposite pick. I'm going with Rafael Fiziev. The Ottoman is going to get back on the winning track, and he's fighting in his home country of Baku, Azerbaijan. The country is going to go crazy just like they did last year when he beat Ignacio Bahamondes. The flags are going to wave, and the country is going to be standing tall and proud, and that's my pick. I'm going with Fiziev over Torres by third round TKO.